Hi, folks. So, the question, are we to be held responsible for our unconscious actions? You know, uh, the consequences of our unconscious actions. I mean, it seems a bit strange or unfair that maybe we know not what we do because we're blind, and yet the end result still is that we are causing pain, let's say, to others, or we are cheating, or we're deceiving, or we're manipulating others. Okay, somehow or another we are interfering in other people's lives in a very unhealthy way. And yes, you can say that, well, it's somewhat necessary in this incarnation that you do have the opposing opposites of good versus evil, and conscious versus unconscious, and the unconscious people give the conscious people an opportunity to have this existence, and they're there and they teach us lessons, and they teach us how to put up boundaries, and how to learn about ourselves, our own value, learn about what's right and what's wrong in a way, although I think sometimes it's inherent within us, so we don't need to see what other people do is wrong in order for us to know that that is what is considered to be wrong or evil, let's just say. Okay. And so, right. I mean, it's a big topic and there's lots to be said, and it's so philosophical and so many different argument points about it. But my feeling is that the way that nature works is that nature holds the individual, the person, responsible, for their actions, unconscious or conscious. Okay, and I really feel there's such a thing as karma. I think there has to be a sense that you can't get away with, without being unconscious, without their consequences to your actions. I know that that's the way the world that we live in likes to think and operate, that there is no justice or consequences, there is no price to pay, there is no, what do you call it? Retribution, not retribution. You know what I'm saying? I think that's how nature doesn't work that way. That you can just do whatever you wish, and there will be no repercussions. Okay. I mean, on a spiritual level, and I also think on an unconscious level. I think the more unconscious one is, and the more pain and hurt, and again manipulation and misery that they cause to other people, the more they become unconscious, right? And the more they suffer with blindedness, okay? With being disconnected from source, disconnected from truth, beauty, and reality and meaning, okay? And I know, so that's the way that in the world today, it's like, firstly, there is no such thing as truth, there is no such thing as beauty and meaning. You can be a narcissist, you can be savage, you can be however you want to be. Do thy will shall be the whole of the law. That's it. Do whatever you feel is appropriate for you, and that's okay. There's no problem with it. Okay, and so that's what the way that society, civilization, culture is playing on today. All right, but it's not the case. It can't be the case. It's you don't get a get out of jail free card just because society's playing that game. Society and culture is sick. All right, and there's a virus. The virus is, being unconscious, and the less of an spiritual immune system that you have, the less truth, honesty, integrity, beauty, and divinity that you have, the more your spiritual immune system is down, and the more susceptible you are to catching the virus. And this virus is spreading rapidly, okay? And it's really is. And so, again, I'm saying many points here. There's much to be said on all of this. It's a discussion that can go on for hours, I'm sure, and I'm not very, I would say, even very well read up on other philosophers and as such, or humanitarians, or the study of something or other. I mean, I don't know, but I'm just saying from my point of view, which matters more than anybody else's, really, for myself at least. I mean, not that I can't learn from what other people are saying and their teachings and their discoveries and understandings, but for myself, what do I feel? right? What is my narrative? What is my explanation of the world and understanding, right? And again, so that is that we reap what we sow. There's no question about it. And so even though we don't realize the price now in this lifetime, okay, of the consequences of our actions. I mean, some people just get richer and just get more corrupted and just become more narcissistic and do more damage and do more hurt and pain, whatever it is, and they find they still they're not really touched by what they do. They're not really bothered by what they do. There's no conscience anymore. There's no guilt that they feel. There's no sleepless nights that they have. There's no anxiety that they have. There's no insecurities. There's nothing, right? They just think that they're constant winners. And again, in the society and culture we live, you by being a narcissist, by being unconscious, by being manipulative, you are actually supported. I mean, that's the dynamic of the world that we live in. I mean, we live in a very dark time, okay, to say the least. And that's just being realistic. You know, the other day I was sitting in a vegan restaurant, and it's like one out of, I mean, there's maybe one or two vegan restaurants in the place that I mean, I'm not vegan myself, and that's also, am I responsible for my diet, right? I mean, I eat fish from time to time, and I have dairy every now and again. And I'm contributing, I'm adding to this problem. I don't recycle. I'm not a very good recycler, you know, and I'm terrible at that. You know, and so yes, I'm also aiding and abetting, but also I feel that I'm balancing out the scales to some degree, I hope. Okay, and so I was sitting in a vegan restaurant, and it's called Oh My Soul. Okay, it's in Durban North here in South Africa, and it's funny because even themselves, they're such a small shop. I mean, it's the size of a double garage, basically, where you can park two cars, you know, the space of that, even that size. And they actually opened their restaurant, and they had something called a mock chicken zicken or something like that. And this is actually a side point, but there's a company here called Chicken Licken, right, a fast food restaurant, chain store, and there's probably thousands around the country, literally, okay? And this Oh My Soul opened their little shop, and on one of their menus, they didn't even do it deliberately in mocking Chicken Licken at all, but they said something like similar. They didn't even know that they were saying something similar. Anyway, Chicken Licken took them to court, right, and almost ran them into the ground, bankruptcy, okay, over something on their menu or something like that. Or maybe, sorry, they said Oh My Soul. So it's the word soul. Chicken Licken uses that word soul in, I don't know where they even use it, to be honest. It's not so, but I'm saying, so they're going against these giants who feel threatened by the small little restaurant. And in the end, I don't know where the court case held it. They lost the first case, Chicken Licken, but now they're applying again for it. I mean, it's ridiculous. So here I'm sitting in this vegan restaurant, and it's somewhat conscious environment, to say, and then you look around and you say to the world, well, this is a needle in a haystack, or I mean, not needle in a haystack, but this is one out of millions, you know, of efforts to be conscious, to be sensitive. Everywhere else around you, it's just McDonald's, it's Burger King's, it's KFC's, it's, you know, you just about name it, all restaurants that are like proudly steak slaughterhouses. I mean, some of them, what they call their names are like Butcher Boys. You know, there's one of them, or Butcher Block is another restaurant. And you look around and you just see, right, that it's a grain of sand, you know, on the beach out of many. No, well, that's not. I'm saying it's. And so what I'm saying is that, yeah, it's when you sit there and you realize, like, okay, how minute and how small the efforts are in for consciousness and for goodness and for sensitivity is in this world. I mean, from my perspective, in regards to food and health, like, you realize, wow, it's actually very frightening. It's actually very scary to understand what the matrix, what the matrix actually consists of and how big it is, and really, it's like, you know. And so also you realize that this life, folks, you don't come here to have a good time. You don't come here for a holiday. You don't come here to, have the expectation of just having a smooth, easygoing life, or just, plan out to have a 15-year goal of, just settling down with a family in a nice house, with clean drinking water and clean, healthy foods, whatever. No, this life is a battlefield. And if you forget that, then you've lost the war, right? You've lost the war. And so, it's very, very important that to always be aware of that. That doesn't mean to be depressed over it, but to be realistic. And again, this life is not the be-all and end-all. This life is a classroom, all right? And that we graduate from. It's a passing phase, right? It's to be taken deadly serious, it's deadly serious, and trauma is real. It's not to say that life is a dream or life is just a play. It's really not. The stakes, like I've said before, are so, so very high, and we need to have such a reverence and such an honor for the battlefield that life is about. We really have to, okay? Because we've come here to be heroic, for one of the reasons, to be heroic, okay? I mean, I was watching this thing on Vice the other day about this, it's in Israel, it's this volunteer program called Zaka. And what they do, you absolutely, you volunteer, you basically, you go to, it's very heavy, you collect the dead bodies basically, or the body parts. Like if there's a bomb that, was detonated and people were blown up or something like that, you go and you find all the body parts of the different people, and you try and, put it all, put the person back together. The one, what guy was reporting on an incident where there was a building, it was a construction thing, and I think something container fell on somebody and crushed the guy to death, and he had to go and, clean it up and whatever it is. And can you imagine, as volunteer, and that people consider them to be angels without wings, right? Angels without wings. That these people are willing to do this. Can you imagine how traumatic it is? Imagine how, like, when you're having to talk to the family about what happened, and address the family. Can you imagine? And so, and people do it. But that's it. Anything in this life that I feel is of goodwill, right, of purity, of love, of beauty, of godliness, of divinity, is going to require, for one to be heroic and courageous. You can't do anything else. You have to sacrifice in a huge way in order to be heroic and make a positive difference in this world. There's no question about it. You're going to, absolutely. That's the way the world works. It doesn't come for free. You can just be here. You can just, choose the right path, be heroic, be courageous, and you think it's just going to come easy peasy. It's not at all. And so that's what the world's about. And so, look, it's no good in sitting here and saying, well, I'll just tolerate all the sort of darkness and the evil, in a sense, because it's part of the process, and it's part. This darkness and this evil will cloud your heart, right? Will cloud your vision. I'm saying in your direction. It will mess you up if you're not paying attention. And so why I'm talking about this per se is that I rented a house, in Johannesburg last year for my staff that were working for me. The lease was really in my name because they used to live in the house that I lived in and then sold that house, and then they could have found accommodation, but we're kind of like somewhat of a family, which I was so not, I was kidding myself really, but I thought we found an old house, right? These were people that have, come from villages, type of thing, without running water, electricity. So we found an old house, and I put the deposit down for them, and I put, the lease in my name, and also as a place for me to stay when I visited Johannesburg, because I moved from Johannesburg to Durban. Anyway, they stayed there for 6 months. When we left the place, I had the place professionally cleaned, the carpets cleaned, everything, But what happened was, during this, while my staff were staying there, one of the guys, he had a heater on. It was the middle of winter, and it made a little burn on the carpet. Okay. And also, well, the carpets were already old. The house is old. They had these parquet floorings badly scratched up, badly. Not even a layer of varnish will do that any justice. It was so bad. The house was just in despair, it was just falling apart. And so now I moved out the house. I wasn't there to do the inspection with the owner, but he walked around, and I had one of my staff guys there to hand over the keys, and he said he's happy, everything's fine. So, a week goes past. I said, listen, you want to pay the deposit? He says, no, I'm having an issue with the carpet, with the burn on the carpets. I say, fair enough, understandable. So I wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, he doesn't respond. After 3.5 weeks, he finally sends me a quote. Right? Now, my deposit on the house was 11,500 Rand. In dollars, for argument's sake, it's less than $1,000, okay? Which is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Anyway, so 3 weeks go past. He sends me a quote for fixing the carpet of 26,000 Rand, okay? Why? Because of this burn mark. He's claiming that there were other burn marks on the carpet, that people were smoking in the house, which they were doing, and it ruined the carpets, which I know that it didn't do, okay? So now I'm trying to get hold of this guy. I'm phoning him, I'm messaging him. I want to come see the carpets. I want to come see what he's talking about. He doesn't answer me, right? Doesn't reply to me, okay? And he hasn't paid the deposit. And I say, listen, I'm taking the money out of these guys' salary, the staff salary, to cover the cost of the deposit of what you're charging. And also now, but he's not, I told him this before, he's not interested. He just doesn't care. So it's just so frustrating. So what are my options here? So I spoke to somebody who's in more of the legal housing rental, and you can go to some place called it's called the Housing Rental Tribunal, and you put your case forward, and it takes them months and months and months, and then eventually they get around to doing it, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. But even in South Africa, I think even if they investigated it and he, and then they summoned him to court, he didn't come to court and he didn't appear in court, and then, and then they put out something for him, whatever it is, they fine him, and you don't have to pay it. No one's going to follow up with him. No one's going to be able to track him down. It's a bit of a waste of time. So it's like I'm helpless. It's so infuriating. It's so disrespectful. It's so like, how can you behave this way? Right? How can you behave this way? How can you be? Because 26,000 Rand, basically, he wants to fix up the carpets throughout the house. So that's the point. 26,000 Rand. It's got nothing to do with me. But how dare he send me a quote for 26,000 Rand and feel nothing about it and then not respond to me? It infuriates me, folks. I can't tell you how this gets the better of me. I mean, just before I'm falling asleep at night, if I think about it, I'll be up for like an hour, just like, and I try to let it go, but I just can't. Anyway, I wrote him an email saying to him, look, I don't agree with what you are saying here. You haven't let me look at the carpets, okay? You've been delaying me, whatever. I said, I'm willing to pay you 2,000 Rand, okay, to fix up the carpet, or to bring in my own company to have a look at the stain in the burn on the carpet, to fix up that piece alone, not the whole house. And I said to him, otherwise I have to go to the housing tribunal, the housing rental tribunal, whatever it is, and lay a charge, open up a case, or go to the small claims court or something like that. And I said to him, I'm prepared either that, or I'll find it and I'll fix up the problem. He doesn't reply. So I'm messaging him again, have you checked your email? Can you confirm that you sent? He doesn't reply. Can't get hold of the guy. So I mean, this is and not only that, but I mean, it's too much detail. It's too much detail, but nonetheless, it is just so disrespectful. It's so like, for myself, if I could take him to court, and but I can't. You're helpless, and you turn around and you're losing all this money, right? It's so hard to bear, and it's so hard to understand that people can behave this way and feel nothing. Feel absolutely nothing. I mean, I'm hoping that maybe he's just been so busy, maybe he's just gone through a tragedy in his own life, that he just hasn't been able to have a chance to get back to me. I mean, I hope that's the case, right? Because otherwise it's just so, unbelievable that we can behave this way. And I know, folks, this isn't the biggest of deals. We're talking about companies, banking systems, gangsterisms, mafias, marketing, whatever. We're talking about people that are hurting one another, medical systems, the psychiatric system. We're talking about a world, that is, like people, governments that are corrupting, especially in this country, right? So we're talking about, people that are behaving this way. And so, like, this small little thing for me, what am I going on about? Why? Because it's for me personally, and it's my challenge, and it matters the most to me, right? And it matters about being assertive, sticking up for myself, fighting what I believe in. But it's so pathetic that you can't even fight the case. So, like, it reminds me of my brother when I was growing up, and this is where I'm triggered from, and he would bully me every day. I've spoken about this before, and he'd bully me, and there was nothing I could do about it because he was stronger than me, and I wasn't prepared to, obviously if I took matters into my own hands and I threw a rock at him, I'd probably land up in some kind of institution, if it hit him on the head and he was concussed or something like that, or whatever it is, then I'll end up in some kind of institution heavily medicated. When people won't ask me, why did you behave that way? I'll say, well, because he bullied me every single day. He beat me up. I was bruised. I had sprained wrists, right? From just him bending my wrists, or just, he used to put my hand behind my back, and, what's it called? There's a term for it or something like that. And just horrible, punched me in the face, horrible things. But of course my dad didn't want to know about it, my mother didn't want to know about it. There was no one else I can turn to. I remember the one time I cried about phoning child support or something like that, and I phoned them, and they were all laughing at me. They were seriously laughing at me because I don't want to give my Jewish name Aaron. I said Jason, and also wanted to be a bit more anonymous. I said Jason, and they all were laughing at me. Jason, look, everybody, there's Jason. And they were mocking me, even worse about, not my parents, but my brothers, who were all around, and called me Jason for months. Called me, there goes Jason. And so there was helpless. I couldn't do nothing about it, right? So a part of me says on this planet that for people that are unconscious, we reap what we sow. Right? Are we deserving of what's coming down the line with nature and the environment and the climate, and from the rain, from the fire, to earthquakes, to tornadoes, to volcanoes, to you just about name it. Is it just nature responding in a sense to the way that we are behaving? I think it is. I think obviously also it's also our lifestyles, it's also what, how we physically affecting, but I think subconsciously and psychologically and whatever it is being affected. And so when we start to, so narcissism is spreading. So you can ask yourself, well, is it fair? Because like somebody who's born into such a sick culture that's sick already, how can you say that they should know the difference between right and wrong? Right? It's hard to say. But does nature understand that? Is nature sympathetic to it? No, absolutely not. You cannot say that at all. There's no ways. Is the law of karma, you see, this is something we don't know necessarily, is the law of karma understandable? I think maybe to some degree. So look, you were born into these circumstances, you were a child of a mother who used to drink alcohol fetal syndrome, your father you were sexually abused by your father, whatever it might have been, so it's understandable. There was no psychiatric real help that you could get. There was no real holistic medicine that was really suitable for yourself. You didn't have the support. You didn't, so what, that's how it is. So you're right. So you ask yourself the level of morality, like where does that come in? Where does that lie? So these are tough questions which I don't know, but what I'm saying is that I know that the more unconscious decisions you make, like the more unconscious food you eat, the more unconscious things that you view, whether it be music, TVs, social media, whatever it is that you're bringing into your energy is making you more, and I would even say more dumbed down, more disconnected. Okay, that's for sure. There's no question about it. Okay, but that's something else. So for myself, nature doesn't play around. And so do we deserve what's coming to us? Because you can say like, well, the children of today, see, it's hard. Children of 3, 4, 5 years old, well, what do they have to do with things? Why did they? So you say, well, maybe that's the idea of karma, right? That they've needed to come in. That, again, we only look at it from the cradle to the grave, and it's not like that at all. We need to consider, again, multi-dimensional, multi-layered, multifaceted, right? It's much bigger than we assume it to be, okay? And there has to be a divine intelligence system to what's going on, and so on and so forth. So again, well, do I have to seek justice? And like in the movie, what do you call it? Time to Kill. If you remember, with Samuel L. Jackson and Matthew McConaughey, I think I say his name, and some other people. And Samuel L. Jackson's daughters were raped by like hillbillies, raped and murdered, okay, and apparently urinated on as well. And Samuel L. Jackson, when the court date comes, he, when he finds them in court, these hillbillies, he takes out a gun and shoots them both dead, and so you'll say, well, is he responsible for taking such retribution, for taking such revenge in a way, from his humanity? I mean, his own daughter, what was going on, like how, so that's, I don't know how I'm getting onto that, but what am I saying there? So could Samuel L. Jackson stand back and say, look, it's the law of karma, and these people get what's coming to them, and I can stand back and not do anything, not fight for anything, not sacrifice for any goodness to show what justice really means, right? But then, how far is it going to be? Because, okay, let's take this a little bit further. With Samuel L. Jackson, let's say he manages to capture one of these hillbillies and torture them, right? And in torturing them, like literally pulling their teeth out and, taking a blowtorch to their testicles, like the hillbilly, hillbilly starts crying and says, look, I'm so sorry. I was abused as a child. I was molested by my father and by my uncle, and so I was just acting out of pain, and, please forgive me, and whatever it is, then, but something's changing. Something's been reached there. You see? Something is fine. Okay? And does Samuel L. Jackson need to feel bad necessarily? Not really, because in a way this person has reached a sense of enlightenment, a sense of awareness, a sense of truth. Okay? You see? And so he's almost saved this man's soul in a way from, to waking him up from his own damnation, right? From walking his own plank that he's walking on, type of thing. And so it's hard to say, what's right or wrong here. And but the wayward, the mass murderers, the serial killers, to bring them to book, I watched this movie the other day called The Highwaymen. It's a story about Bonnie and Clyde, and about how these Texas Rangers, I think they're called, were hired to track them down and basically, shoot them on contact, or, type of thing. And, the Texas Rangers were so unhappy about having to do this job of shooting these young Bonnie and Clyde and killing them, but they had no other option. They had no other option, because Bonnie and Clyde were on this rampage and just murdered in cold blood, right? How many policewomen, men and women and innocent people, and they were on a rampage, and they were above the law, and they were above morality. Okay, and so in other words, they lost the plot. They became possessed, completely possessed, which is what the bankers are of today, the media type people, the corrupt lawyers, or whatever, a lot of the law, the world at large, right? The medical professions and whatever it is. I mean, governments, the musicians, or not, who's ever pushing behind them, like, they become wayward, they become possessed, right? They're almost not even awake or aware or human, because they have no sensitivity, they have no heart, they have no soul, they know not what they do. And so forgive them, for they know not what they do. But if you forgive them, you're in big trouble, because then you don't have a boundary. And it's not about you forgiving them. Anyway, that's something else. Because believe me, they'll want nothing more for you to forgive them, so your guard can be down and they can come back and hit you again, so you can turn the other cheek so they can slap you on the other cheek. Believe me, you don't think a narcissist will do that? There's no question about it. I know my brother, geez, how many times it's happened to me where I've forgiven him and said, no, we can be bros again and best of friends, and then the next day, the next hour, he's done something that's so horrendous, and I'm like, just because I forgave you, So it's all a complicated matter, all of this, it really is, and it's very hard because our lives are deeply, deeply affected by the virus, by unconscious, right, by the possessed. They really are, and the whole world is. So, we live in a time now of purification, but it's very, very hard. For myself, it's very challenging to understand that these are other human beings, right? And to understand that they have souls and spirits, and some part of them is divine. All I just see is the woundedness. All I just see is the fabrication. All I just see is the manifestation of just sometimes pure evil. That's all I see. I try and look for light in some of them, and I just see confusion. I just see bewilderment. I just see, dazed and confused and like a zombie. And that's exactly in these zombie movies. The zombie walks around. What does the zombie eat? It eats flesh. It drinks blood. What do vampires drink? They drink blood, right? That's what they are. They're the lifeless. That's it. If you're seeking energy of anybody else, if you're manipulating anybody else, or even animals or nature, or anything that's not even your own, but if you're seeking to do harm, right, then you're vampiristic. You're trying to feed off that energy. It doesn't matter if you're selling, if you just created a new alcohol beverage, if you, in charge of a plastic company or a farming, where you do these battery chickened eggs or something like that, all of that. A conscious, sensitive individual should not be involved in any of those areas of life. Should not be supporting it. It's easy for me to say, but I just don't think so. I mean, for myself, and I haven't felt comfortable with it, but now I'm getting out of it, is retail shoes. Okay, which is not great. It's not great. But in a way, I'm also there's much to it. So I'm also guilty. I'm also guilty. And I don't think there's anything wrong with manufacturing of cigarettes. I don't blame the cigarette companies. Because firstly, I'd blame them if they advertised. That's my thing. But they don't advertise. They're not allowed to advertise. Advertisement is the manipulation. Alcohol, fine, but don't advertise, because that's where it comes in. Advertisement is selling the product, and it's convincing people. It's hypnotizing people. It's manipulating people. I sell a few shoes, and whatever it is. I'm not manipulating people. I'm not even the people on my staff. They're not intense sales. I never push it. So let the people choose for themselves, decide for themselves. Not up to you to pressurize them. That's not what my story is about. So that's it. Vampiristic people, folks. And I don't know. Have we turned into zombies? Are we the Walking Dead? If we aren't, we're very, very close to it. We really are. And again, it's so perplexed, it's so complex, because all of this comes from pain. All of this comes from woundedness. All of this comes from childhood abandonment and whatever it is, traumatization. That's where it all comes from. Hurt people hurt others. But so you can't have empathy for them, because with that empathy will set you up for disaster again. And you lose track of reality. Just you understand now that they're possessed, that they're ill. That's what happens in these zombie movies. Guy gets bitten, transforms into a zombie. They shoot him dead, one shot, because he's not the person who he used to be, And I'm telling you, I know people that they're not the people that they used to be. I can tell you of a story of a guy who worked for me. I mentioned him before. Gave him such a good job, best salaries ever earned. Best working hours, best environment, everything, and he was just stealing from me. A good friend of mine, I've known him for 8 years, good friend of mine, stabbed me in the back. He became somebody I do not recognize. I do not know this person. Even the way he looks, I don't even recognize the look in his eyes anymore. So they're zombified. And so let's just be realistic about it and sincere about it and understand what we're working with here, folks. And it's a time for heroism, it's time for courage, and protect yourself and know what you're working with, and don't give people the benefit of the doubt, and don't have unhealthy boundaries. Or you don't have boundaries, and don't just be so empathic to others. Right? Don't side with the fact, well, they're so wounded or whatever it is. They just can't help themselves. Maybe they can't, but you just walk away from it. There's much more to be said, folks, but I'll end off on that for now. Thanks for taking the time. Be well.